3万円になります。
Alrighty, hello everybody, and welcome back to the European Multikey tournament. We are officially done with the round of 16, and all that is left to do before we send you all on your merry way is show you guys what you'll be doing in the quarterfinals. Welcome to the quarterfinals Mappool showcase. As always, my name is Sparky, and I am joined in the commentary booth this time around by none other than nightkore. How's it going, man?
Hello Sparky, and glad to be casting with you for the quarterfinals showcase. So the stakes are a bit up to this week now, especially that we do have our losers brackets, so now we will be seeing some people getting sent off on their goodbyes if they do lose there. But we also do have the difficulty raised up a bit for these. Hold on, there's 10 maps? Yeah, there's 10 maps. I think it might be increased, I'm not too sure. But for anyways, we will show you what we have in store for this round.
Yeah, absolutely. So, without further ado, we can go ahead and get this show on the road. Starting off with, it's going to be Kukish is Risare. Looks like a map by Ailsan. And it's going to be our first 4-key map. Same format as we have been going through. It's going to be our 4-key rice map for the quarterfinals.
Yep, so again, as always, we have the same formats, so I presume this is probably going to be kind of about the same format we have seen from last week, kind of that mixed rice technical aspect, and we're already seeing this already with some of those mini jacks to kind of kick off things, kind of giving us a glimpse for what is to be having offered.
Yeah, just very technical grace patterns all over the place, these little intricate bursts in between those aforementioned mini jacks. Littered throughout the playfield, kind of keeping you busy. It's very much in that vein of if you're one of those players that really needs to have like a consistent foundation for where you're going to be hitting, this is going to be a bit of a bad time. This is a very free-flowing, I guess is the best way to describe this map, as we continue on into the second third of it. You see that the density really starts to ramp up during those chorus sections, and yeah, you do get a couple of reprieves, but once you're done with that reprieve, it just dives right back on into it.
I do think it's probably going to be around it is a pretty flowing map despite it kind of being more vocal dumpy, but as you kind of do get into more of those mini jacks, getting accompanied by a lot of those patterns, as you can see some of those on one hand trills just right after those mini jacks, and even some jumps and hands as well accompanying after as well, which definitely can pick up the density a small bit, although pretty flowy and a bit lower on the BPM. Definitely a very awkward map, and I would say definitely for some of the non-4-key players, it's definitely a map you might want to stay away from.
Yeah, I think we've seen a trend overall, at least in the couple of matches I have seen, where a lot of players kind of just leave the 4-key maps to the very end, if not getting rid of them overall, because I feel like with these maps, they're kind of a known commodity. You can kind of push the difficulty in comparison to the rest of the pool on them because of the fact that everybody has that skill set in their locker to kind of be able to throw this out, and nobody really wants to get into that ratio battle that we always like to talk about with these like early to mid game rice charts. And with something as difficult as this, it might just be one of those like, okay, keep it as like a pocket pick, maybe throw it out if things really start to take a turn for the worst, if you really feel like you can out physical your opponent, because this is very stamina draining for the extended sequences of these dump patterns that you're having to read through. You can find yourself just spiking accuracy left and right if you can't maintain the pace of a lot of the patterning in this chart.
Oh, definitely. And especially when we do get to the ending, we're getting a lot more of those denser streams and a lot more of those technical patterns. I do believe even when we were seeing at the final, around the final third of the map, we were seeing a lot more of those denser streams accompanied by some of the mini jacks out over to the flams. Now, sometimes you could just read them as a jump, but in this case, I would definitely not recommend it. So we just have to quick. So I think that is just going to conclude our 4-key race. So we can move on to the 4-key long low pick. Again, as you were saying, definitely a bit I'd say people would definitely leave the 4-key picks to last. Definitely a bit more riskier kind of jumping into the rough ground.
Yeah, especially with some of the opponents or some of the matchups we're going to be seeing. It's going to be wild seeing them potentially throw down on a pick like that. But we can move on to our 4-key LN pick, and it's going to be Haunted Dance. So you guys see a new interpretation of this one. Pretty well-known song by all stretches. I think there's a couple of rank sets of it. So an LN interpretation, and sure enough, going to start off with a massive barrage of LN density to kick things off. Oh
yeah, definitely. And just like, and may I just add the note count? It is around 6,000 notes as well. So this is going to be one heck of a map, I would say. I would arguably say this is probably going to be one of the maps that are going to be probably banned the most, especially that you do have to kind of jump in with that density as well. Even getting some inverse stream bursts, seeing through here, finding a combo break would be very nasty. But as we do get into the first ski out, we're seeing a lot more of those shield patterns jump in. A bit of that technicality and coordination jumping in as well is throwing everything at you at this point.
Yeah, and to just top it all off here, you have elements of like just non-standard release timings across a lot of these streams. Like you're not able to kind of time it onto like one of those like 1/4 patterns. There's very tricky timings to some of them as well. So if you're not too careful, you can find yourself just losing accuracy on the releases, trying to play through the rest of whatever is going on.
Yeah, and it does not stop at all. Like, you do not get a single break in this map at all, I do believe. And yeah, you're just getting kicked back into things. The fact that you can consider the density as a break is already just showing the signs of how much we are able to push the limits with when it does come to 4-key. And definitely when it does come to later, these charts will get extremely physical. Even having some of those jumps with the shields as well. But now as we do kind of get into things with that mini BPM change, getting a bit more technical with some of those flams and some other scattered releases as well. Gonna get thrown back into a bit more of that technicality.
Yeah, you get these staggered starts and stops, a lot of little rice notes interspersed in between. So even when you think you get into like a coordination section, you get these real chord heavy style LNs to read through. No, you have things to do on columns that aren't being inundated with holds. It's just a lot to juggle. And the fact that we're only 2/3 of the way through, it feels like we've been playing for well over like 2.5 minutes at this point. So definitely going to be locking in for a bit of a marathon through these first two 4-key picks here so far. And it just does not relent. If you are a very, very comfortable 4-key LN player, this is maybe a pick that you want to get over and done with immediately, just to either tire your opponent out or just like really ensure that you're going to have a point in the pocket to work with, because I honestly, going into next weekend, I would be very surprised if anybody willingly went into this. The fact that we don't have any protects won't give us a bit of a reading as to how many people would actually want to keep this around, but definitely wouldn't be surprised if we just saw this catch bans left and right next weekend.
Yeah, I would argue say this is going to be one of the most banned picks. I would probably account this as an equivalent to SV and SV tournament that has SV present. It is just a very daunting map. Like, it is just a marathon to get through. Like, pretty much you're going to have to sprint through the rest of this map. And as you were saying, maybe it's a pick you want to get out of the way, or maybe if you do have that stamina, maybe you could pick it near the end to try catch your opponent out. But again, that is kind of more of a risk for your own stamina as well. But, we'll have to see.
Yeah, for sure. But with that being said, we can move right along to our next map, and it's going to be, a Silent Room song. It's going to be F1055. I imagine it's going to be colloquially known as Floss. It's going to be our first 5-key pick of the pool, and it's going to be our 5-key Rice pick.
If I would probably have to judge, just looking off Silent Room, kind of known for mapping some songs with some pretty techie music choice. I mean, most commonly known as Nelv. You actually kind of get some sort of Nelv format as we do get into build-up, and as we do start off, we do get some of those mini jacks into the flams, kind of some of those repetition patterns, which Mirror can't really save you at that point. But now after that, we are kind of going to start kicking into the streams, definitely on the higher snappings, but not really too much other than your pretty simple jump stream, kind of having this 3-note rolls, some of the anchors as well accompanied by it.
Yeah, you begin to develop into some nightkore streams, some staircase patterns left and right through the build-ups here, and you get these. Every impact, it feels like, in the music is accentuated with like an outer column impact, and it just helps build on the density through that section. You finally get a reprieve afterwards as you get into the main melody of the song. But like to your point, you see Silent Room, you kind of know what you're going to be getting into just based off of the types of songs that they create. So if you were expecting a technical pick, congratulations, you won the prize. It is going to be a very technical 5-key Rice pick to read through.
Yep. And then can I also just mention that this map pick is actually pretty long. We're actually raising the length of a lot of these maps now, so stamina is going to have to be coming into play a bit as well. But now as we do get into our final key, I have to see, can I get that split, can I get that trill transition, and now the chords are getting a lot heavier jumping into this final section. It is going to be throwing non-stop at you, like having to jump between those streams and some of those trills. I think it's definitely going to catch a bit of players out, especially on the sight read, and yikes, some of those anchors as well, just to kind of to keep your technicality in check as well. It is going to be a test of pure dexterity and stamina at this one.
Absolutely, just like a final sprint to the finish through this section. It is so difficult to read through. You imagine you're starting to settle into your standard like 1-4 chord stream, but then it starts to delay a little bit. You get the snaps starting to build up ever so often, just like breaking the monotony of the section. And I mean, if you're brave enough to, or if you're comfortable enough to read through that, this could be a really good pick to get into those odd numbered key modes.
Oh, definitely. It's definitely one of those maps where, well, also you do not want to sight read this, because there's a lot of jump scares in this map. As we see near the ending, you had that 3-2 jump, you had the 3-2 trill at the end. I would say around chord trill. So it is like just frozen everything to keep you in check. So that's going to conclude our 5-key Rice. So we can jump into 5-key and see what that has in store for us.
It's going to be Bad Elixir. And similar to when we see Silent Room, you see she as a artist, they're kind of a known commodity in terms of what they're going to be doing musically, and seeing it as an LN styling of a pick, it's very piano heavy, it feels like, with their musical composition. So a lot of the physical runs of other instruments are probably going to be portrayed inside of those LNs, and sure enough, very dense start through that introduction to get things underway.
Oh yeah, kind of just keep you off in check, as always. But as we do kind of get after that first intro, we do get that bit of dense coordination. We do get a bit of dense coordination before jumping back into things. Again, the gaps are very minimal, but I would assume just because of the lowish OD, I think the release fundamentals might not matter as much, but still something to keep in check. Again, combo definitely does come first, and just as we get those density spikes, we're even seeing inverse chord stream as well. You can definitely see this big step up from what we have seen from last week's.
Got a Lacrima Trill on the non-middle column to transition into the back half of the chart, get a tiny bit of a reprieve from the action, and definitely watch out for these releases. It definitely feels like some of them are hanging around a little bit longer than some folks might be expecting. But like you were saying, just a little bit of a lower OD to compensate for that might be able to get away with some of the release timing if we're getting on into the last quarter here. Again, just a absolute sprint to the finish with non-stop things happening all over the place, all 5 columns just being busy at all times. The saving grace is the fact that because it is a higher BPM, I've tended to notice that folks tend to opt into these kinds of picks willingly because of the fact that it's so dense. You can basically just kind of eschew the accuracy element, and dear lord, what an ending.
This is this map is just something else. Definitely a big spike from what we have seen from last week. But of course, I think a tournament would be boring if we had the same difficulty for every week. And especially when you got near the end as well, you could even see some of those reverse shields as well, which is definitely just yikes. But I think if it's a map you can handle, especially with the BPM, I think you should be fine with it.
Absolutely. There's folks out there that are just chomping at the bit trying to set a score on this, so we'll have to wait and see how they do next weekend. But that will do it for the 5 key maps of the pool. We can move on to our 6 key rice map for the pool, and it's going to be a collaboration, Kudagane versus Soundbox Oppressive.
Definitely a very interesting. Definitely a very cool song to see when we, especially in the 6th key area. But now as we are kind of going towards the higher key modes, we're gonna have to see how. What these players will have in store. Kind of getting off the intro, getting off that pretty simple chord stream, and some of those 1/8s as well to keep just to start off. Getting a bit more into the technical as well, as we do see some of those mini jacks, and we're just seeing a lot of that dexterity coming in, just to kind of keep you up.
Yeah, just littered all over the place with double staircase into delay streams. Starting to see an introduction of that into these mid-game pools where you're really having to hyper-focus on the timing of some of those staggered runs. You can maybe get away with just trying to play this like straight 1/4, but it comes at a bit of a price, and with the way players have developed their skills when it comes to these harder rice charts in and around like the 6 to 7 key range, I imagine this might still be in the relative comfort range of some of the, at least half the players left in here. I mean, take that with a grain of salt, of course, but I imagine there are far worse alternatives that are in store here as we progress through this map pool. And mercifully, a bit of a break at the middle portion of the map.
Oh, you definitely will need it, especially as the back half does get a bit trickier. Again, we haven't even seen an introduction to mini jacks as we have seen previously. Even some going to free notes as well, which again, very hard to hit with the ring finger. I mean, that was of course if you are using keyboard layout. It'd be funny if we see someone use like, I don't know, like a BMS layout for it. I think it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely at least there's got to be somebody out there that's attempted it, but yeah, the variety of methods you can employ to be able to play through stuff like this knows no bounds, especially as we get into those even higher key modes. But as we continue on into the back half, it kind of evens out a little bit, becomes your de facto chord stream style of pick. You lose the intricacies of those delay streams that we saw earlier, and it settles into what is probably going to be the comfort zone for a lot of the players going into this round, where they kind of just settle into a groove, ensure that they're reading through everything as accurately as humanly possible. Yeah, the chords get a little dense at times, but I don't think we see anything above 4 notes during any of those segments at any given time. So definitely, given what we have seen these players do on like 7 key, just removing that middle column might just be a bit of a blessing in disguise going into the 6 key rice. So yeah, that'll do it for the 6 key rice. A very impressive replay set, and probably gonna be the benchmark. I imagine there's gonna be some players that are gonna be in and around this like 990k range going into next weekend.
Well, I definitely know that from what I have casted over the last 2 days, um it looked like a lot of players are just very comfortable with the 6 key rice pick from the round of 16. So I guess we do have to throw off the physical just ever so slightly.
Hmm.
Ever so slightly. So, we cannot to see, well, will you guys find it too easy, too hard to get, and then maybe we'll figure the difficulty later. But now, that concludes 6 key rights. You can jump into 6 key LN. Let's go.
Yeah, so moving on to the 6 key LN chart, it's gonna be Billy Moto's Amethyst Aurora.
Already kind of looking off from this song. It actually is an OC World Cup original as well. Is that 2022? No, it's 2023, I think. But anyways, just already judging off the song, it does look like it might be a bit coordination. Actually, hold on. Okay, then
There we go. The build-up's very coordination heavy, but I mean, to be fair, the overall density of it becomes as very hybridy in nature. You have a lot of these like rice fills in between the coordinated anchored LNs, not really like full-on density in comparison to something like the 5 key LN chart. And so far, still looking really fair. Where the coordination, I take back everything I just said. You get full inverse walls in this chart.
Also just seeing that with the split frills inside, and yeah, it does actually come over to effect a few times. As a matter of fact, we have 4 right now. Should have a counter at the top right to see every split frill. Oh my god. But yeah, as we are, yeah, but it's kind of more of a stop and go when we do get from the walls. Like, again, you do have that coordination area as well, and actually we are up in the OD as well. But again, this map is still pretty long, so stamina is gonna have to be a key factor if you do want to snag the points. But again, we're having a lot more emphasis when it does come to that coordination aspect. Having some on the same snappings, having some on the different snappings, and even then having some of the chords as well here to kind of keep you in check. But as you do kind of get through this break, it is going to be the calm before the storm. Still keeping your coordination in check is still a matter of fact.
Yeah, the recurring theme still being a little bit of an interlude in between. Bit less so here, where you're still having to maintain some level of coordination focus going on into this back half, but it becomes a bit of a reprisal of the earlier section. If you can handle these LN walls as they appear, you know that you're going to transition back on into a one-hand LN into rice on the opposite hand, back into the wall, and that's basically the main like difficulty spike of this chart, not including literally everything else that is difficult about the chart, but it feels like those are like your checkpoint sections. You can break it down into those sections into the next portion and begin to build some semblance of a foundation as to how you're going to approach the chart as a whole. So not a lot of major punches being pulled. It makes itself a known commodity, and if you can handle all the Grace Note shenanigans that are just happening all over the place in these in-between sections, I mean, compared to what we have seen with the 4 key and 5 key LN, this feels, on the surface, I mean, take this with a grain of salt. I'm not anywhere near as proficient as the players in this tournament at 6 key, for even the LNs, but I mean, it looks really approachable on the surface.
Oh yeah, I feel like it's definitely going to be one of those picks where a lot of players will still be able to keep up with it. With it.
Hmm.
Even finding, like, I would say probably we could see scores similar to this, but again, you still have to keep that coordination in, and especially that combo as well, being a pretty long map. But now that does conclude our 6 key, so we can jump into the middle of the road. We do have 7 key.
Yep, so 7-key Rice. It's going to be DJ Toto featuring Sunao Yoshikawa. It's going to be arousing.
Alright, so here we are back onto the metagame mode into 7 key, and well, for all you 7 key proficient players, we have something here which will make it. And here we are jumping into that technicality with some of those flams in the chord stream, which is definitely a way to kick off this map. Definitely going to be pretty awkward for that start. Of course, it is pretty flowy, especially on some of those streams as well.
Yeah, this feels like prototypical, like quarterfinals, mid-game style 7-key Rice chart. Like, if you think of it in like World Cup terms, maybe like a Rice 2 or Rice 3, where you have the chord stream elements, but you get the little nuances of like those delay streams, like the double staircases all over the place at certain times. But the real bulk of it is going to be that chord stream proficiency that a lot of the players are very, very good at. I've noticed over the years. Like, this is very much in the wheelhouse of a lot of the players that are like 7-key mains are probably seeing this as like, okay, cool, this is like home base. I can just go to this if I just need a comfortable map to get started on this Mappool with.
Oh yeah, it's just a fact that like the 7-key players have just been able to go on and casually just 990k this.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we saw some of the higher 7-key or some of the higher Rice scores on this particular chart, just given how much the envelope has been pushed in that realm. So yeah, a nice little quick in, quick out to start the 7-key Rice. It's your standard chord stream, delay stream style of pick, and something to really get really whet the appetite for the rest of the pool.
Oh yeah, it's probably going to be giving a taste tester to see what we do have later in store with the 7-key picks. So with that out the way, we can get into 7-key LN.
Alrighty, so 7-key LN is going to be Mizuhara Kagami's Suki.
So we can get into things. And already kind of giving off with the intro, kind of follow the same format I would say with the 6-key pick. Starting off with that pretty simple coordination, but as we do kick off more things, I would probably believe we would be jumping into a bit more of that density and coordination.
Yeah, this definitely feels like one of those low BPM coordination picks. Thankfully not like 20 BPM, but you're definitely going to be wrestling with, I think, the epitome, like the Achilles heel of a lot of players when you feel a song is slow enough that you have to deal with the coordinated sections. But no, it's very much littered with dense sections to kind of keep yourself engaged. You're not having to really think about where those releases are. You can kind of let the fingers go, and by the time you're needing to use them again, the note's already over. You're less of a risk of slider breaks. Now, that being said, the anchors litter throughout where you're having to really hold out some of these notes. Those might be the pitfall points for this particular pick.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, again, it is very flowy, I would say. As you perfectly, as you said, it like absolutely perfectly. We also do have some of that chord stream as well between. But we still have some of those you still have to manage between a lot of those staircase LN coordination, and I think that's just going to be the format of this map. Kind of has a good balance between the density and the coordination aspect. And as we do get into the KI, we're having very more of those density areas, which does kind of get broken up by some of those mini rice transitions as well. But also, this map is very short, I add, compared to what we have seen from before. So combo will definitely have to matter a lot, especially when you do have those anchors and even some of the shields as well. Yikes, it is going to be a knuckle sandwich pretty much to get through.
Absolutely. So, yeah, very, very much a vocal dump style of LN chart. It's very, like you mentioned earlier, just very free flowing in what it's demanding you do during those last sections. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw like a last minute flip, just somebody completely spiking that ending and sending it on over to their opponent. We'll just have to wait and see how that turns out. But that will do it for the 7 key maps. We can move on to our 8 key rice pick.
Okay, getting it back into our off meta modes, and here we go. This is gonna be there's gonna be a Sekai no Mori, and as you can already see, and wow, just okay. First of all, look at that graph. Okay, well, we can probably expect a difficulty spike near the end.
Yeah, massive single note stream to kick the map off with that scratch lane, giving the emphasis to really keep you on your toes. And I mean, we have seen folks employ some pretty interesting methods to ensure that they respect the scratch lane, or dare I say, not respect it at all, and just play this like a straight 7 key map.
It has been seen before.
Absolutely.
I mean, it came to someone trying in the scratch net with their foot, and just some people ignoring it. But here we are, just starting off a pretty simple chord stream for the intro. Thankfully, the scratch note near the start of the map isn't really emphasized too much until you kind of get into where the vocals do get a bit heavier. But thankfully, a lot of them are kind of when it is on some of that simple snapping, besides when it does come to when the vocals do get a bit heavier. But outside of that, I think it's something you do have to kind of keep your eyes on.
Yeah, it's crazy just how much that scratch lane does to the interpretation of a chart, because like on the surface this is essentially a 7 key chord stream pick, but you then throw in a little sprinkle of just that extra note coming down every so often to keep your either left hand side of your streams busy, or your right hand if you play with mirror, and you just see everything, like all semblance of coordination just go out the window when you have to add the pinky note, or however you decide to hit that scratch note. It's wild just seeing what it can do to people. And as you continue on to this outro, I mean, again, on the surface, it's just a Rice 1 style 7 key pick, but the density is high enough that you throw in that scratch lane and it becomes borderline impossible to read through safely.
Oh yeah, easily. And as we do get to the ending with that difficulty spike, we'll have to see what the outro has for us, and it's just going to be pure density. And oh my god, with that ending as well, the scratch note and the chords as well on the left or right hand. I think that will definitely shift some scores the other way around.
Absolutely. I am calling it now. Somebody is going to be up by like 25k and just completely column rush that ending, and it's just going to swing it right on over. What a way to end the 8 key rice pick.
I cannot wait to see players play that. I really want to see how they do handle the ending.
Absolutely. But with that being said, we can move on to our 8 key LN pick.
And this is going to be Suicide by Sanarari, and maybe the replay maybe decide not to FC just to make the replay a bit more scary, but we'll have to see if they did it on purpose or if it was a genuine miss. But okay, 8 key with 7 key plus a scratch note with the LN as well. Okay, starting off with some pretty simple coordination, and at least scratch note isn't really too emphasized, mostly on the same snapping. So hey, you got something there. There's also decent as well. So this is key.
You want to run that one by us one more time?
Oh yeah, pretty much. Yeah, consistency is key.
There you
And
go.
and yeah, just already going through the first quarter. This map is I would say it kind of follows a simple purpose, but definitely does challenge the physical and the release capabilities of the players. Again, with the length just still being this long, definitely a daunting. It's definitely gonna be a gauntlet to get through. Thankfully, you don't really have too much emphasis on that scratch, so that is something that we have forgiven you guys on. The scratch is not present that much.
Yeah, but when it does make its appearance, it's very much making itself known, and you get into. I mean, it does a really good job of emphasizing some of these impactful moments and transitioning on into the back half. Just a massive 7 key inverse wall, just complete staggered runs all over the place, wanting to keep your focus, transitioning on into the back half. Gotta make sure you don't futz around and spike that section before transitioning on into this portion. It's not as dense as some of the other picks in the LN side of the pool, but it does definitely keep you on your toes at times when it does break away from like the straight, like coordinated sections. The saving grace for this is the fact that it's like some of these releases do feel like they're on that like 1-2, 1-4 grid, so you're not having to like guess as to when you're having to release to make your way through some of these sections. But the cores do get pretty intricate going into this last quarter and holding all 7 lanes, transitioning onwards, ending with the scratch, dive right back on in.
Yep, and here we are. We just have the archer left to go, so the density is going to be a bit upped here when we jump back into things. And here we go, kind of following the same format, but a bit more of those scattered releases around the area. Thankfully, the scratch isn't really too emphasized near the ending, just kind of making its appearance here and there. As we do get for the outro, having a bit more of that technicality before we jump into the final mini wall. That is going to do for our AKLM.
Yeah, very nice song overall. It's very calm for what it's asking you to do in the grand scheme of things, but that will do it for that. No more scratch lane needing to be worried about. And go on to poppin' 9 key or 9 key rice map.
Here we go. Now the pinkies will be present. I mean, yeah, the pinkies will be present.
Yeah, so it's gonna be stuck in place.
Yeah, and definitely, and even just seeing some previous matches, definitely is kind of hard to keep that dexterity between the ring and pinky, so definitely going to be feared by a few players, well, 9 key in general, but we'll have to see how all the players do manage.
Yeah, this is a very, dare I say, lightly patterned, so far, technical style pick. You're dealing with some very calm bursts, a lot of grace note patterns, a lot of flams begin making their appearance, and a very heavy emphasis on making you use those pinky fingers, or just your outer fingers, on these early sections where you're not going to be able to get away with a standard 7 key pick with the occasional nuances. No, you're having to integrate those outer fingers into your chord structures and to these grace note structures as well. You got to be able to use the whole hand to swing some of these staircase runs as well.
Oh yeah, it's pretty much that mix between some of those four note rolls, accompanied by some of the flams. Again, you could get away by just reading it all on the same snapping, but I think definitely that could be a reliant option, especially when you do get to the higher key modes. It is definitely a lot harder to keep your combo on, so it could probably be a viable strategy for some of those players.
Yeah, you get whole hand Grace No Flams where you kind of have to make that executive decision. I imagine folks that are comfortable with using like 2 thumbs on the spacebar or however the key configuration is for your playstyle to be able to like just snap your entire wrist to handle like those right hand bursts or the left hand bursts while ensuring that you're not having to like over inundate the other hand while it has to do the more intricate patternings in between those sections through that first key eye. But now we're into the back half. You start to see the introduction of these little mini jack patterns that make their appearance, and we go back to this like sparse little single note intricate section before we begin the build up once again here.
And here we are with those flam builds up. With those flam build-ups again, and here we go, jumping back into things again with some of those anchors and that nasty transition into where we have the next area, having a lot more emphasis on some of those bursts and some of those flams as well, where I do believe more this time since they are more spread out. I would say reading these as a drum is not too much of a viable option, as Doom Hunters will probably be a bit more present, and as we get to those outer brackets coming by the stairs, we definitely see that spike kicking in.
Yeah, this is a very aggressive ending in the fact that it's just every single column has something going on, and if you're one of those players that doesn't have like you're so dialed into like say 7 key, adding those extra 2 columns, it's very easy to kind of get the tunnel vision and ignore what's supposed to be happening on those outer columns. And that's when we start to see those like really big rushes of spikes, because you start misinterpreting where the exact note is supposed to be. You're like 1 column off here, one column off there, and I don't know, this is definitely a pretty big jump for our first 9 key pick, but I'm excited to see what the 9 key LN chart is going to look like, if this is a bit of a primer for what the Rice is going to look like.
Definitely going to be a bit interesting to see. I mean, last week we just had pure coordination, which was extremely awkward to kind of hold on. So maybe if we do introduce some of that density as well, kind of judging how the flow difficulty is for the quarterfinals, I would not be too surprised, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and load up the 9 key LN chart. While we wait for that to get underway, do you have any expectations for where the pick trends are going to be going into next week? We have some pretty spicy matchups as we settled in like that winners bracket, and the losers bracket has a couple of low marquee matchups as well.
Oh, I think the matchups are definitely interesting. From what I have, so what I have casted for.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, let me just pull up the bracket. Okay. I think definitely Jerem versus Clemati is going to be something. Jerem versus Clemati in the winners bracket is going to be one I would say to watch out for the most.
Nice. Yeah, without further ado, we got the little gremlins out of the way. We can move on to our 9 key LN chart, and it is going to be a bit of a famous chart here. It's going to be, or famous song, should I say? It's Matt Silver.
So yeah, Matt Silver, I would say pretty known map in general. I think used in pretty known tournaments. I think many World Cup 4K using it, and definitely has a few rank sets as well in some of the other key modes as well. But yeah, we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing definitely a big density spike compared to what we have seen in the round of 16 already, with that coordination and some of those rice notes as well to keep you in check.
Yeah, very LN focused, yes, but you have that like hybrid-y element thrown in there as well, where you have the little nuanced rice notes here and there in between to keep you busy, so it's not just like a full coordination consistency test. And again, it begins to start layering, similar to how we have seen Like if you're familiar with the song, you know how it begins to like really build and layer on itself. And you get into the breakdown section, it becomes really technical with these staggered grace note runs in between the LNs. You can maybe get away with just like running your fingers over the keys to try and hang on as best as you can, but before that, it transitions back on into this like coordinated LN section. Thankfully, not too dense on the chords overall. But when it really does start to fly off the rails, it really begins to kick off.
Here we are, definitely getting a bit stronger on more the emphasis on a lot of those LNs, and even seeing some chords as well present between. Definitely going to be very tough to kind of keep your combo on, especially as the dexterity on this. Having to just switch between your pinky and ring finger is not an easy task, but as you get with the outro, having one more LN section, and that is going to conclude our 9-key LN. So that is going to be 5. Is it 5 or 6 keys? Actually, it doesn't matter because we just have one key mode left, 2 more maps in store for the rest of you guys. And let me say, they are probably going to be the most interesting to see. So let us introduce you to our 10-key rice.
Our 10-key rice pick is going to be Cygnus, the Evolution of War.
So here we go. Just judging off by the note count as well, this is going to be one of our shorter picks. And that's probably what I was going to say about 9-key LN as well, that, it is somewhat short, so it could probably be map you would be better off picking earlier, I would say. But now with that out of the way, we can start talking about our 10-key. I would just say it starts off pretty light. And compared to what we have seen from last week, definitely going to have more of that spike. Again, still being a short map, combo is going to have to be crucial for holding on. As we do get near the start, it's just going to be kind of your simple chord stream. Just to kick things off before we do get through the rest of the map, just our appetizer for now.
Yeah, you start to see like these 3-4 note chords begin to develop here, the density ramping up ever so slightly. Like it is, I feel like the difficulty curve for 10-key is like you see a 10-key map in comparison to like what we saw in like the 4-key rice map, and it's like, man, it is so light in comparison to the 4-key map. But then you realize that it's like, okay, yeah, trying to play this with all these chords interspersed, it is so easy to just lose track of which finger is supposed to be hitting at any given time, especially if you don't have your binds that acts absolutely perfectly. Like, where do you use your thumbs for the inner columns? Do you move your index finger to get the inner columns? However you decide to play it, or do you have a different key layout overall in general? Is definitely very interesting seeing how players adapt to these 10-key maps, especially the ones that are like extremely proficient in it.
Oh yeah, it's just like definitely, as you said, like just the dexterity and that middle trill as well. Gonna be pretty nasty, but that is gonna conclude our map. Again, when you do get to the higher key modes, dexterity is definitely gonna be more of the focus compared to the earlier keys.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. You're I guess, do you have the foundational level to build off of in these higher key modes? And that's really the emphasis here as you begin to layer on the density of some of those chord structures and the pattern structures as well. So all that's left is one more map. It's going to be the 10-key LN chart for the pool. And it's going to be none other than, let's see, Roku Denashi's Kokoro no Oku.
Alright, a pretty tame song to conclude the rest of our picks, but this map is still pretty evil. Again, still managing that dexterity between each finger and just getting that brain power you do need as well. Like, pretty simple on the snappings when it does come to coordination, still on the, I would say the 1-2, but still, you're still kind of managing that dexterity and just knowing which one to hit and release, because as we do get more the emphasis on the heavier rice note, not heavier rice, heavier whole notes, It can definitely start to boggle your mind a small bit, especially playing this a bit later in the map, where after a couple of maps, your brain might be a bit fried over it.
Absolutely. And we shift the coordination low BPM LN chart over to 10 key phase. And I mean, before too long, you're just having to juggle so much as the density of the chart when things begin to pick up, transitioning out of those heavy vocal sections back into the interludes. Just keeping track of where those longer anchors are becomes so important as you make your way into the back half of the map.
And especially now, like we're getting a lot more of the rise notes accompanied in between some of those LNs as well. Even the outer columns as well. Like you just have to use the full potential of your fingers definitely to hit those maps, especially when like you're hitting an LN on when you're holding down the LN on the pinky and then like you still have to hit the rise note. Then on the other finger, or vice versa, it just becomes a mess very quickly if you're not capable for it. It's going to be one of those picks that I think, even then, I think a lot of players would end up banning this as well for one of their, I would say for one of their second or third bans.
Yeah, absolutely. It really just becomes, with these higher key mode LNs, like kind of pick your poison. Which one do you want to take it on the chin on if you are going to use a ban on the higher key mode ones? That being said, there are some players that swung some like really impressive scores last weekend on like the 9 key and 10 key LNs when they were left up. So I'm pretty sure there's some players looking at this kind of like, okay, it's another manageable map that I can assert dominance on, and it'll be very interesting to see which players really take the challenge of this particular map and essentially all of the uh, non-standard key modes charts. So with that being said, that will do it for the main quarterfinals map pool. I believe all that's left is just that all important tiebreaker. If you are finding yourself locked in a dead heat 4-4, which we did see at least once last weekend, we do need a decider. And our decider for the week is going to be
Drumroll, please.
it's like I'm just
Oh wait, no.
drumming on.
There's no tiebreaker. I think.
Ah,
I think
nice.
tiebreaker definitely does come in later.
Something like that.
Yeah.
What do you call it? I do so many other tournaments. This one's such a 180 curveball from what I'm used to that it's like, oh yeah, that's right. There are different rules here. So
Yes.
a
It's
bit of
like
a I do my massive build up and it's like, oh yeah, oops.
it's
That's
like
my bad.
Quaver, no tiebreaker as well. But you
Yeah.
know,
So with that being said, that will do it for the main map pool showcase. You guys have been doing a excellent job of scheduling your guys' matches. If you are in the losers bracket, I think this is the first time we do have potentials. So definitely be on the lookout if you do need to schedule with more than one person. If you are in the losers bracket, definitely don't want people missing out on potentially advancing in that losers bracket. If you do need to coordinate more matches, but I think Erased has been doing a fantastic job of trying to make sure everybody is in order. So continue doing what you're doing, and hopefully you guys enjoy the maps, practicing through them. We definitely enjoy watching you guys play them, and nightkore, you have anything else left to add here?
we just got clipped by a raise. That's that's something.
listen, listen. I am really good at falling flat on my face. It is not the first time, and it definitely won't be the last time. So, hopefully, you guys have a wonderful rest of your Sunday or Monday if you are in the later time zones. I don't know why you'd be here, but it's getting late. Go to bed. We'll catch you guys next weekend then. Take care, y'all.
Bye.